Here's where I think people get confused a little bit about whether marijuana is an addiction or is a gateway drug to addiction. Um, there's a difference between addiction and dependence, and you have to understand that. There are some drugs that create a dependence, like opiates, and if you use them, your body becomes physically dependent on it, and you get really sick when you withdraw. Marijuana is not one of those drugs. You don't develop a physical dependence to marijuana. So there's a big chunk of society, just like alcohol, that can use marijuana recreationally and be fine and not have any adverse effects. If you have an addictive personality, if you have addiction in your genetic history and you are prone to addiction, marijuana is one of those things that can trigger it. Just like alcohol can trigger alcoholism, marijuana can trigger addiction in someone who has that predisposition. So once they start with marijuana, they become habitual users, and that it goes from habitual use to marijuana to habitual use of something else to habitual use of a drug that they become dependent on. So in that sense of the word, yes, marijuana is a gateway drug. Most of the kids that have died from habitual use overdose all started with marijuana. Um, and we had this at one of the presentations I did. I had a parent stand up and say, well, marijuana is not that bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And I had about 8 parents in the front row whose kids had all died from a drug overdose. And I asked all of those parents, I said, how many of your kids started with marijuana? And all of them did. So, like I said, a big chunk of society of kids could probably use marijuana and not have any adverse effects at all. But there is a segment that has that addictive personality that use of marijuana is going to lead to addiction of a stronger drug. So that would be my long answer to your short question.